Hey guys, sorry that I am not here in the classroom today. I hope that you guys are doing well, and I am still excited nonetheless for us to work together asynchronously on this studio project. This is the first day that you really get to dive in and create your portfolio, your self-portrait. Wow. From home, I guess my brain is a little off. So let's go ahead and get started with our sketchbook today. Remember that you are setting it up same old with that do now at the top, visual journaling at the bottom. I know you guys hear me say the same thing every day, but sometimes y'all forget. So I'm gonna just keep saying it every single day, right? All right, so, and what's cool about today working asynchronously is I'm actually going to be writing and following along with you guys. So I'm going to actually go ahead and switch that camera over. Boom, check it out. This was from our last, like our cross-hatching activity. I'm going to my next page here, and I am working on that do now right along with you. I'm going to give you guys a heads up that if you normally use a mechanical pencil, totally fine for working in our sketchbook, but we are going to be working on our self-portrait, and you will for sure need a regular like number two pencil, like the ones that are in the boxes that are given. If someone like took all of these type of pencils that are usually provided in the classroom, then ask whoever is covering that teacher. There are a bunch of those pencils at the front of the classroom. You'll see them. You'll know what I'm talking about. I think they're actually like right next to the headphones, that front supply table. All right, so part A is lightly sketching the contours of the parts of the portrait. All right, so I purposely picked this one because it's a little difficult, right? But in order to prep you for your self-portrait, I wanted you to get started on that do now practice. All right, so I'm actually gonna start, you don't have to do this, but I am starting just the basic like head shape of this guy. There's a lot going on, right? It's kind of just cut off like right here. So I'm gonna draw that border. Great. All right, so I see his ear. I'm gonna start over by his ear because that's a really good frame of reference. I'm looking at this jagged piece of hair he's got going on. He's got lots of jagged hair here, and that makes it fun. Something that you might have to find yourself doing when you are drawing the hair is you're actually like the biggest trick to drawing is you're not including all those details, especially not at first. Like, don't get caught in all of those details of the hair. If you can see the screen, I know it's kind of small because I'm sharing my PowerPoint slides at the same time. Notice how I'm not getting stuck on all the little details. I'm just focusing on those basic points, those basic spiky points of his hair. All right, and look, I'm sitting here going back and erasing because I gotta just find that proportionally, those spikes, how they lay from one to the other. All right, let's see if I can bring that a little closer. Yeah. All right, this camera is reversed and that makes it very difficult. There are all those little spiky points. That's about as long as you should spend on that. Go ahead and start working on part B, which is the white thinking hat, just the facts. What type of lines did you see? Ooh, I definitely did a lot of zigzag lines. A lot of zigzag lines. I'm gonna even draw that zigzag, that spiky hair, right? So a little bit of a curvy line for his ear. But that was about it. That was the majority, right? Great, that's it. We're done with the do now. By the way, that's about as long as it should take for our do nows. I've noticed that we are spending quite a bit of time for some, and then some are just like really rushing through. So just to kind of like keep that gauge of pacing. Our goals for today are scholars will scale up for their reference photo grid by 2, and then using scene skills to complete contours in row 1 and row 2. So there's quite a few things that we're gonna do. We're actually just gonna dive right in. Our visual journaling will happen naturally. Our visual journaling is those, that scale up grid that I'm talking about, scaling up. It's actually a math term that you guys often use. So in your visual journaling section, this is where you're gonna calculate your scaling up factors, right? And your planning process for your self-portrait, all right? So I'm gonna go ahead and label visual journaling, if you haven't already, like so. Go ahead and turn that back to that camera. Boom, got my visual journaling. It's not cute, but it's there. All right, so let's take a look at this. I'm gonna move this so it's a little bit bigger for y'all to see, right? And I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. All right, so here it is. You have your portrait printed out, right? I measured this portrait with, that is a 4x6. So I rescaled these and printed them out, and it is a 4x6. If you want, you can double check me, grab your ruler and double check that. All right, so I'm gonna measure that out. Great, that's a 4 at the top, or you can say 4 wide and 6 inches tall, right? So it's a 4x6. Now, your watercolor paper, your monoprint paper, and if you didn't get some monoprint, then you'll just have a blank page, but it's still this thick watercolor paper material, right? This is a 9 across and 12 inches high. So it is a 9x12. It is a 9x12. There's a problem here because we are going to make a grid, right? This grid will have 4 boxes across, 1 inch each, and 6 boxes down, 1 inch each, right? So it'll be 4 boxes here, 6 boxes down, so it measures out nicely, right? We are going to scale up. So if you know about the scale up factor, like you did in math, we are essentially looking for a common denominator, right? You didn't know that you were going to be doing so much math in art class, crazy, right? We talked about science in art class. We talked about social studies in art class, like talking about, you might have heard me say like mentioning different cultures. So that goes around social studies, and now we're mentioning math. So we have our 4x6 and we have our 9x12. But if we do our boxes across, right, it should be, if we're scaling up by a factor of 2, so scale up by a factor of 2. So essentially doubling this size, right? You cannot double a 4 in order to get 9, because 4 times 2 is 8, right? But 6 times 2 does equal 12. So our 6x12, this is set up beautifully. So we'll still get our 6 boxes, right? Because we want to keep the same amount of boxes, right? Okay, so I'll write that down. Our goal is we want the same amount of boxes, all right? But the size of those boxes are going to be different. So size of box is not the same. That is what we are scaling up, right? That's what we're gonna make bigger. We want still 6 boxes, but we want to make them 2 inches instead of 1 inch, right? Here's our problem. A 4x6 does not go evenly into our 9x12. So pause this video, see if you can figure out and problem solve, creative problem solving to be exact, creative problem solving of what can we do to solve this problem. All right, pause this video. Great, so you're back. It must have meant you pressed play and you might have solved it, or you came up with a couple ideas, but you're not quite sure how to achieve this goal here, right? What we're gonna do, there's actually a couple options, right? So one of those options is you could actually do a 3 boxes. Yeah, so you could actually create 3 boxes. So times it by 3 rather than 2. But this would have to be a 3x6. And the problem with doing a 3x6 is your photo would get super smushed in, right? So this would now be like really squeezed in and the majority of your thing would be cut off, right? So we still want to maintain the portrait here. The easiest way to creatively problem solve and to allow this to fit is literally just chopping an inch off of this piece of paper. Literally just chopping off an inch, right? And then we will now have, this will change to an 8x12. Ta-da! So we can easily, we will now have that scale up factor of 2, right? That common denominator is 2. That is the easiest way that we can still get our 4 boxes by 6 boxes. So go ahead and measure out on, let's start with our portrait here, right? Because we know that this is a 4x6. So go ahead and measure out your 4x6. I'm gonna put my ruler here. And again, this is like the visual journaling portion. So you should have like, basically what I wrote right here, I just wrote it much bigger on this. You'll write that down for your visual journaling. I can even write that down right now. Right, so we have a 4x6. We want that eventually to turn into a 9x12. Scale up factor by 2. What you'll do is cross that out, and it now becomes an 8. 8x12. All right, so the plan is chop off 1 inch of watercolor paper. Watercolor paper. Boom. All right, that's our visual journaling notes. This is actually really good practice. I do a lot of this type of writing and planning when I am working in my sketchbook and creating artwork to hang in a gallery of some sorts. It's a lot of like writing and calculating and drawing and scribbling, all sorts of things, right? So I'm not gonna ask you guys to cut this. Don't worry about it. I just want you to decide which part do you want to cut off, right? Before we do that, like I said, we're gonna measure out our self-portrait, our little picture here, right? I'm going to mark with my ruler each inch, right? So I have a here, I have a little part here. I'm actually gonna zoom in on this. Let me zoom in. All right, so I'm going to mark, here's my 1 inch, or here 0, 1, put a little dash mark for 2, little dash mark for 3, and then our dash mark at 4. Go along to the other side, do the same thing. Put a little dash mark at 1, dash mark at 2, 3, 4, 5, and finally at 6. Okay. There we go. So those are my little marks. And now I'm going to create those lines. You can use pencil for this part, or you can use Sharpie, such as a Sharpie pen. I'm actually going to use one of these little guys, little Sharpie pen. No, wait, I'm kind of nervous about getting this perfectly straight. Because what if I create my box slanted, right? Because I could accidentally slant my ruler. So I'm going to do pencil first because I don't feel super confident in getting my angles correct. I can always go back over with Sharpie. All right. That looks pretty good. Looks pretty even. Nice, nice. Might be a little hard to see in this, which is why I'll go back over. Remember, make sure your ruler is level, right? So don't have it like slanted like so. Make sure it's try to be as level as possible in that. Honestly, this is the hardest part. Like what you guys are doing right now, this is the hardest part. Ta-da, here we go. So I actually did all of that in pencil and then went back over with Sharpie. If you need more time to create your grid, you can always pause this video and finish up. Just make sure, I actually recommend, even for me as a teacher, I did it in pencil first, just to ensure that these lines are nice and straight. So it creates these beautiful 1-inch boxes, right? We want this as accurate as possible because we're literally replicating what is in these boxes onto this page. So the more accurate you get with this grid making, the more accurate your picture is going to be, right? All right, so you got your 4x6, okay? And I'm also gonna put my name at the bottom here. Even though it has my face on it, it's always good to just get in the habit of constantly writing your name down. Right, and then I'm even gonna say 4x6 on that page, just so I know, okay? Cool, now we're going to scale up. Remember, we still want 4 boxes on this side, still want 4 boxes, but they are now 2 inches wide. They are now 2 inches wide, all right? So I'm gonna go across and use my pencil. This is where I'm saying it's really important to use one of these pencils rather than the mechanical, because mechanical tend to like press down really hard and it's a lot harder to erase, right? We eventually are going to erase these grid lines. They're not going to stay there forever. Right? So I'm measuring out, there's the start. I'm going all the way out to 2 inches. 2 times 2 is 4. So 2, 4, 6, 8. Right? 2, 4, 6, 8. All right. So that means this leftover right here is that extra inch that I'm going to cut off. If you don't want this side, so it basically would be from like here to here, this side all the way down would be cut off, right? That's what I'm deciding to cut off, I think. Do I want to cut that off? Let me take a look at this. All right. So that means, so my hair would fall along on this side. Or I could cut off the softer side. No, I think I do want to cut this side off. Yes, that sounds good. If you wanted to cut off the other side, just turn it upside down. And then know from this 1 inch mark, this whole area would be cut off, right? All right, because remember we did that 8x12, we had a problem solve, we had to creatively problem solve. I did that on purpose. I know you're thinking like, oh, Ms. Pearson, why didn't we just have an 8x12 originally? Well, they don't sell 8x12s in watercolor paper. They don't do that. So we had to creatively problem solve, right? This happens all the time for artists. We want to scale up. So I wanted you guys to get in the habit of scaling up, but then also creatively problem solving, right? It's part of that real world experience. Great. So I'm actually going to make a line going down here. And I'm going to just take my pencil and just run across it like so. Reason why I'm doing that is you are now telling Miss Pearson, that this is the section that you want cut off, because I'm going to go back Wednesday night and cut off all these 1 inches. Either that or I'll cut it off later. Knowing me, I'll cut it off over the weekend. You know, I'm not trying to kill myself. That's like 150 pieces of paper that have cut off that inch. The reason why I'm doing it instead of you guys is because I'm using my fancy paper cutter thing, and it is really good at cutting those straight lines. Whereas like if you use scissors, you're more likely to make it all curved and it doesn't look as cute, right? Or professional. All right, we're gonna retrack. So I got my 4, I have my 2, 4, 6, 8. There's my 8 inches. Now I'm going to go down. Sorry, I kind of like went off on a little tangent there. Right, here is my 12 going down this way. Remember, by 2 inches. So there's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and then 12. This is a little note about your ruler. So if you look at your ruler, make sure you're marking on the longest line that is created on that ruler, the longest line that goes down. So you can see by that 1, this is a struggle, guys. Beside that 1, it has a really long line. Straight up, I'm gonna draw this. All right, this is what we're gonna do. Whoops. Okay, so you have your ruler, right? And there's all these itty bitty tiny lines. Then there's this one long line, and then it has a 1 right there. Make sure you are lining up to that long line. That's what I mean. Sorry. I could not get the camera to focus, so I did it the hard way, and I literally just drew it out for you guys. That's the best way you're gonna make sure it's super accurate. Remember, we wanna be super duper accurate on this. Got mine measured out. Now I'm gonna go ahead and start drawing those lines down. Again, be really light when drawing these lines. Don't press down too hard. We want to be able to erase these later. Good job. All right, you can go ahead and pause this video and start working on that now. Great, so you should have that in pencil. Do not do this in Sharpie. Do not do this in Sharpie. Make sure that you are only doing this in pencil because we don't want the grid on our final paper, right? This is all in pencil at this time. The only reason I did it in Sharpie here was just because it was easier to see this black and white portrait here. It's really hard with pencil because it's already, this print is already super dark, right? So I created my grid. Notice that those squares are much bigger, right? And then I also have that 1 inch section that I'm like, Miss Pearson telling you to cut this off. Cool, we don't want that, right? We just want this 8 by 12. Each box is 2 inches. On here is our 4 by 6. Each box is 1 inch. Double check to make sure you got that. If not, pause this video again. Maybe check with a partner at a zone 1. Ask those clarifying questions. Done. Great. So let's go back to our video, our presentation. And I have a video for you guys on how we are going to get started with creating this self-portrait. We're going to take it box by box. Remember those thumbnails that we did on, I think it was day one. We did those day one thumbnails. That is going to help you a lot. We are going to look at box by box. We're going to see, we're going to trace, we're going to draw, and we're going to commit. Ready? So let's check out this video. This is Miss Crumb. You can see she's looking at this one box and she lined it up with her watercolor page along with her printed picture. She is now, so that C part is she's looking at where the boxes line up. The trace is where she is taking that pen and she is tracing around the contour, aka the outline of this drawing. We are not focusing on those details. Remember the do now? In the do now, I did not focus on the details of the hair, right? I only focused on the contours. You're doing the same thing for your portrait here. We are just focusing on the contours. If you get caught up in the detail, one, it's going to take you forever, and two, you're probably going to get your proportions not the best, or it's just going to take you a little bit longer to get those proportions right because you're so caught up in those details. You're not going to have the opportunity to create our pattern design. Remember day 2, we did our cross hatching and all of those things. We're waiting to do that until later, just the contour for today. She's tracing around the outline of her hair in that box. She is now going to grab her pencil, right, onto her watercolor paper and recreate that design. Just focusing on the contour, recreating those lines, just like what you did in your thumbnail, right? Beautiful. Once you have gotten that first row, actually, I'll wait. Just focus on getting one row done. That is our goal for today, is that top row. I'm gonna go ahead and stop share, and I'm gonna go back to the camera here, right? Our goal is just to get this top row. If you have time to commit in Sharpie, great. If not, that's okay. Let's just focus on this top row. Now, this shouldn't be too bad. Let's check this out. My first box is pretty simple, right? Box 1, all I gotta do is draw the contour of my hair like so. I'm gonna make that a little bit closer, bring it in close so you can see a little better. I can even use my Sharpie pen. Anything on this paper, you can totally use your Sharpie pen. Anything on your watercolor paper, you're using pencil, right? All right, so this first box, all I'm looking at is, check it out. Just got this one little line for my hair. That's it. That's literally all I'm doing for box 1. Cool, I'm gonna try to line it up. Ta-da, done. Box 2, let's do this. Great, I'm looking at where these lines start. Focusing on the contour here. You can see I'm starting to draw the outline of my hair. Like so. Last little thing I have to include is this eyebrow. Right? Boom. That eyebrow right there. Cool. So I've got my hair and my eyebrow. Maybe yours has something a little different. I'm gonna have this side by side. You can even, if this helps you, you can even fold your paper Oh yeah, I love this. This actually helps me a lot. Sometimes as an art teacher, I feel like super pressure to be like this perfect artist, you know? So whew, this actually helps me a lot too. Which slide that under. I'm even gonna line this up, right? So this is my box 2. This is my box 2. This helps so much. Great. And I'm just gonna continue filling in this space. Notice that it doesn't go all the way up to the edge. Notice what lines touch the edge, how far down do they go to the edge. Really focus on those lines and where they land. The more accurate you can get here, the more accurate your portrait is going to be overall. Again, like I said, it's really important to not use mechanical pencil during this time because mechanical pencil, it's so pointed that it presses down really hard on this watercolor paper, almost to the point where it leaves an indentation, whereas this pencil is much softer and doesn't leave as much of that indentation, and it's much easier to erase. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and pause my work. You can go ahead and pause this as well and work on this top row. Go. If you ever have any questions, just ask your shoulder partner at a zone 1. Make sure it's a zone 1, a whisper, so you're not interrupting others while they're working. Great, here is my first 4 boxes here. So you can see I have gone through. This first row is pretty easy. Generally, like these top 2 boxes, there's not too much depending on the layout of your photo. If it's a pretty standard one like mine, where it just kind of has the head like plopped in the center, right? And these 2 will be pretty empty. If it's not that way, there will be definitely some pockets in those boxes where you don't have to draw as many outlines. I am actually going to leave this as is. I'm not going to go back with my Sharpie just yet. In the event that I need to make some adjustments on the later boxes just to kind of like realign, or that I realize looking, like as I look onto my next couple rows, I'm like, oh, I didn't quite align this right? I can go back and just easily erase and readjust and take a closer look at those boxes. If you finish early on this, you can start working on your second row. Great, guys. That is the goal for today, is just getting that row 1. You measured out your self-portrait. You learned about scaling up. You should have learned about that in math. And so it's really cool to like hopefully see that again in art and for it to come through. You guys are all done. Whenever the bell rings, you can pack up. Before then, if you finish with row 1, like I said, you can get a head start on row 2 if you would like, or you can just pause and do some free draw as well. When you're packing up, you are actually going to turn in your watercolor paper and your self-portrait. So let me go ahead and show that to you guys. So you're actually going to turn both of these things in so you don't lose them. Put them in the bucket where you normally turn in all your stuff, like near the front door where it says block 1, block 2. And then even though it says block 3 and 4, I still, like, it's week 3 and I still have not changed it to block 7 or 6 or 7. One day I will change it, my friends, one day. So put that in that bucket where it belongs. Both sheets of paper, right? Both of these, because I don't want you guys to lose them, right? And then tomorrow you'll just pick these back up again, and then we'll start working on the rest. All right. Peace out. Hope you guys have a fantastic time. I will for sure see you in person. Right, there's my face. I will for sure see you in person on Thursday, and I can't wait to see you. Have all the questions. Make sure you're asking your friends if you do have questions, but I will definitely be there tomorrow to help you guys out. All right. Wish you all the best. Bye.